What is happening, everybody? MG here, MGCovers, bringing you a brand new handicapping video. The title of this video is What is the Most Undervalued Aspect in Sports Handicapping? We're going to reveal that in a second. As always, if this is your first time watching one of my videos, greatly appreciate you subscribing to the channel. If you want to learn about sports handicapping, I have a ton of videos, a ton of playlists. If you're interested in learning about handicapping NFL, which is coming up here in just a few months, have a really good playlist talking about how to build an NFL model and a lot of examples on how to handicap the NFL. If you want to follow me on social media, I'm MGCovers, cover spelled with a Z. That's on Instagram and Twitter. Give out a lot of nuggets on my storyline on Instagram, so you get a lot of value just in follow me. Give me a follow, MGCovers, cover spelled with a Z. All right, so let's dive in. I'm super excited about this video. I'm going to give you just some great information, and the things that you're going to learn in this video is applicable to other sports. The example I'm going to use is Major League Baseball, but the most undervalued aspect in sports handicapping is line movement. And I'm going to try to give you a sort of an abstract example to help you understand what line movement is and how valuable it is. And I want to tell you a really cool story. I wish I had the power rankings and example from this story, but this really stands out to me. This was back during basketball season. I may have some clients that remember the game, but it was a Sunday noon game in college basketball. I remember I had this team in my power rankings, like -15 was my line. The sportsbook line, I think, was somewhere around -5. And it was maybe like a mid-major type basketball game, maybe like Ohio or Cleveland State, something like that. So obviously that's a really significant margin. If we have -15, the sportsbook says it was -5. Well, so I wrote that down as a potential play. And when I went and checked line movement, the line had moved to -4, which means people were playing the other side, pulling that line down to -4. Well, I made a note of it, and then maybe about 15-20 minutes before the game, the line had moved to something like all the way down to -2.5. And I looked for injuries. I read several game previews, and I had no idea why this line was moving. So therefore, I decided not to play that team, even though we had huge margin. Well, lo and behold, the team that we were going to play did in fact lose the game. And I think this is a great example because here is a visual, this is sort of that, I don't know if abstract was the right word, but here's a visual representation of what line movement is. In that particular game, let's just say the team was Ohio that I liked. So my power rankings had Ohio. I handicapped a couple situational angles. And let's say I could have access to 10 other sharps, which means, let's say we were on a Zoom call. So I get on the Zoom call with these 10 other sharps, and I tell these sharps, hey, my power rankings have Ohio at -15. We have huge margin. The line is -5. I like Ohio. What if all of the other 10 sharps on that Zoom call said, well, MG, we are going to go against you. We're going to play opposite of Ohio. Guys, that's what line movement is, because there's so much money. A guy that's betting $100, $50, that's not enough to make the line move. When you have sharps that are putting a significant amount of money into these games, that's enough to make the line movement. And that's really a good representation of what line movement is. And it's very important to always check line movement. I'm going to give you some real good examples. So when you think about line movement, just think of that's having access to a bunch of sharps, okay? And there's sometimes when line movement is not necessarily moving because of sharps. It might be a big public move. You'll see this in NBA. If a big star like, say, James Harden, LeBron James is out, sometimes a public overreacts, pushes that line so far in one direction that you actually get value in the other, on the other side, okay? So keep that in mind when we talk about line movement. It's basically, access to sharps. And I'm going to show you another real important example as well. So let's take a look at this. These are power rankings from, if you look up here, from 7/27, which was 2 days ago. So my power rankings right here. And the game we're going to look at this Cincinnati Chicago Cubs. This is the F5 line. There's the starting pitchers, and this is what we're going to focus on. This was my final line, full game line. I had Cincinnati plus 120. I had Chicago Cubs plus 117. This is what we call a 50-50 game, which means neither team should be favored. They're both underdogs. Basically what I call a coin flip game, a 50-50 game. Now let's scroll down here. Now, my power rankings include, pitching, hitting, as well as I've added relief pitching, which is this rating you see right here. Power rankings, very solid. It correlates to winning. So when you take that, you have a solid model, and combine that with line movement, you got a pretty good handicapping system there. So let's scroll down to this Chicago Cubs game. Let's take a look at it. The book we're going to look at is Pinnacle. You can see here, let's pull this up and just give you another quick lesson on line movement. All right, so the first thing we look at is the opening line movement. Again, that's not as important what I'm going to show you, but you always want to see what the opening line movement is. And just remember, with regards to line movement, I got a lighting camera here now, so bear with me just 1 second, is that the line is always going to move some. It's never going to stay the same. So, the whatever the opening line is, it's going to move one in either direction. That's normal. So we can see it opens at 139. So let's scroll down. Okay, the game, this is on 727. And what I like to do when you're looking at line movement, and just off the bat, so we know that the value is with Cincinnati here, right? Because we realize the Cubs should not be favored because we have them at plus 117. We have Cincinnati at 120. So the only potential play is Cincinnati. So we're getting a lot of value. Our line is plus 120, potentially, 139 to 150, 160. Okay. So back to the line movement. So if you scroll down here, 727. Whoops. Let me see here 1 second. Okay. 727. Okay. So you can see the night of, it was at 140, and then that morning it's at plus 163, right? Okay, that's the day of the game. 727, you can see it's 163. And now it moves to, I don't know why it's not moving for me. Okay, it moved around, went down, then it came back up to 163 at 9:56. And then it had a bump up to 167 at 10:50. Whoops. Yeah, 10:50 a.m. it's at plus 167. Now you can see, so from here 9:44 up until 10:51, that's a significant line movement moving against Cincinnati. What I mean by that is you got more people playing the Cubs. So the sports books makes this side more attractive to get more money on this side. Again, the best way, this is what I learned from my mentor Bob McCune, is that we're not going to react to line movement yet. We're going to let this line season and make our play right before game time, because that gives us the benefit of letting the line season and mature and see what exactly happens. Because the most important movement and line movement is the last movement, or where the line moved last before game time. So this is important. 10:51, let's look at this. 7:27, it was 167. Now let's look what happens. 167, 164, 164, 164, 160. Now 5:25, it moves to 156. So what's happening now? You got more people playing Cincinnati sharp money, moving this line down. 153, 150, 149 at 7:06. This game's at 8. 148, 148, 146, 148, and then actually ended up closing at 152. So at the peak of this line movement, at 10:50 a.m., it was 167. It moved all the way down to, ended up closing at plus 152. So that's a 15-cent line movement. That's huge, right? If it was like 5 cents of line movement, but a 15-cent line movement is very significant, moving in favor of Cincinnati. So you look, okay, it's plus 152. Our line is plus 120. We got good value there. Line movement is in our favor. And of course, Cincinnati did win that game 7-4. Now, this is another important aspect of line movement that I want to mention. So we have my power rankings over here, right, that we know correlates to winning. And some of you may ask, you know, what about pitching? We have that in here. But let's say, for example, maybe the Cubs, I don't know the specifics of this game, but let's say maybe the Cubs' second best hitter was not in the lineup, right? Well, rather than you worrying about researching that to figure that out, guess what's going to happen? If it's significant enough, it's going to do what? It's going to show up in the line movement, right? Let's say maybe Cincinnati hits better against right-handers than they do left-handers. If it's significant enough, it's going to show up in line movement. So that's why it's so important, whether you're wagering on soccer, UFC, regardless of what it is, you have to be conscious of what's happening to that line, because something you may have missed in your handicapping will show up in the line movement. So again, very simple way to handicap using my power rankings to see if we have value. Of course, the line moves in favor of Cincinnati there. And of course, they won that game. All right, so let's take a look at an example from today. All right, these are my power rankings. Let me see if I can pull this up. Yep, here we go. All right, the game we're going to look at this Chicago White Sox Kansas City game here. You can see that's the first 5 line. And if we scroll over here, we can see the final line is, again, very similar, what I would call a 50-50 game. We have Cincinnati at plus 107. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on the Cincinnati. We have Kansas City at plus 107, and the White Sox are plus 115. So via my power rankings, neither team should be favored. So now we go and check out our line movement. And just so you know, this is sportsbookreview.com, if you guys don't know. Let's scroll down here to Kansas City and White Sox. All right, let's click here. Again, same deal. The line opened up. The White Sox were heavy favorites, minus 171. Kansas City was plus 157. So we immediately know what? Our line was plus 117 for Kansas City. So we have huge value. Kansas City, there's no way that we would play White Sox. There's absolutely no value there at all. So let's scroll down. Line opens at 157, and so today is 7:29. So let's see what this thing looks like early a.m. Okay. So we can see here 164. So early morning, it's at 160. Kansas City's at 160. Okay. So let's see what happens to this line movement. Nothing too significant. 162 bumps up to 166. 164, 168, 167. Now look what happens here at 11:29. It moves all the way to plus 178. So what does that mean? That means the majority of sharp money in general is moving in the direction of the White Sox. Sports books have to make the Kansas City line attractive because the majority of money are on the White Sox at this time. So let's see what happens from here. 11:29. It's at 178. Okay, now we got 11:38. It moves to 164, 160, 159, 160 at 1:30, 1 o'clock, 160, 161. Yep, and this was afternoon game, and then it eventually closes at 161. So if you compare the final line to the opening line, you would say, okay, not much movement. However, if you look at the peak and the general direction of where the line was moving, this line actually peaked at, 173. So this line moves, well, I'm sorry. Whoops, my bad, y'all. Yeah, 178, I was right. So plus 178 at 11:30 moves all the way back down to 161. So what happened was, you had the early movement was in favor of White Sox, but the last movement favored who? It favored Kansas City. And which line movement do we react to? We react to the late line movement. It moved from plus 178 down to 161. That's a, what, 17-cent line movement. So that is significant line movement in favor of Kansas City. And of course, Kansas City ended up winning that and cashing at a really, really nice dog price. So again, I can't stress enough how important, and you can see how undervalued line movement is, because again, we didn't read any game previews using this example. We didn't check lineups. We didn't check umpires. We didn't check left-handed pitching against right-handed. We didn't know if Hernandez was better at home. The White Sox pitcher was better on the road. We didn't check any of that. All we did was used our stat model, which we know correlates to winning, as well as focusing on line movement, because all those other elements that we talk about are going to show up in line movement. Okay, so hopefully this video helps. Again, regardless of the sport, you can always check line movement. And again, it's that late line movement that you want to focus on and react to, as opposed to the opening line or early line movement. And again, you want to make your wagers. It might not be feasible for you depending if you have a job or whatever, but again, that's the best way to assess line movement, is look at what's happening, the late line movement. If you want access to these power rankings you see over here, there's a link in the description box. You get access to that. It's $49.95 per month. In addition to that, you get access to all of my coaching videos. I think we have 32 coaching videos I've made year to date, plus all the ones I've made in the last 2 years. You get access to all that. Power rankings also for soccer every day. And then, of course, NFL and college football when it starts up. If you want access to all my plays, in addition to everything I just mentioned, you can get access to that for $99 per month. And if you want to join for a solid year, which is the best return on your investment, you save about $600, and you can join for an entire year. You get access to everything for $4.99. Hopefully this video helped, and if you liked it, give it a like and subscribe to the channel, and we will talk to you guys soon. Peace.